Tonight, NDC minority accuses government of mismanaging 141 billion cedis in oil revenues, warning drastic measures will be taken against MPP government operatives if the NDC wins the 2020 elections.
On the 7th of December, when we vote for President Mahama and he assumes office on the 7th of January 2021, every infraction ought to be accounted for in accordance with law. And so Dr. Bawumia can decide that he will do statistical gallantry and give you figures on only trade, but wouldn't deal with the current account.
We have details as the minority members hold a forum today challenging claims made by Vice President Dr. Bawumia at yesterday's town hall meeting.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem, Cement the Nation Builder, and Vodafone. The future is exciting. Ready. The NDC minority is tonight accusing government of mismanaging a whopping 141 billion cedis in oil revenues, warning drastic measures will be taken against MPP government operatives if the NDC wins the 2020 elections. The party has been addressing a forum on energy. Former Deputy Energy Minister John Jinapor claims the NPP government has made far more from oil revenues but has dissipated the funds with more than $500 million cedis unaccounted for. Listen to him.
Like I said, if you look at total revenues, and I decided to do 3 years, if you look at the budgets, President Mahama received 71 billion cedis in the 3 years. President Akufo-Addo has received 141 billion cedis in 3 years. And so you can see the little that President Mahama got in terms of revenues and the whooping amount that President Akufo-Addo got, and compare the two to see who has done better given the circumstances that they find themselves in. And so Dr. Bawumia can decide that he will do statistical gallantry and give you figures on only trade, but wouldn't deal with the current account. And it is the same when you go and look at the reserves. And so the critical question to ask is that how has President Mahama spent the money that he got, and how is President Akufo-Addo spending the money that he is getting? And it's important to look at some of this comparison. Now, if you look at the PIAC report, the PIAC report makes it clear that there's a lack of transparency and accountability within the oil sector in terms of accounting for our revenues. For instance, during President Mahama's time, we followed the Public Financial Management Act and spent a chunk of that money on physical infrastructure projects that comes under capital projects. But under Akufo-Addo, they are spending less than 50% of petroleum resources on capital expenditure. Equally, the PIAC report of 2017 and 2018, and this is a public document, states categorically that $655 million, not cedis, cannot be accounted for between 2017 and 2018. What it means is that $655 million of the taxpayers' money has vanished into thin air.
He also had a warning for managers of GMPC.
Today, GMPC, which was our flagship company, which was doing very, very well, has borrowed close to $1 billion today. And out of that $1 billion, they have failed to come to Parliament for approval. And let me sign a word of caution to those managing GMPC. Please take note that what you are doing infringes the Public Financial Management Act, and that on the 7th of December 2021, when His Excellency John Mahama assumed office. Ladies and gentlemen, let me state it clearly that on the 7th of December, when we vote for President Mahama, let me state it clearly, on the 7th of December, when we vote for President Mahama, and he assumes office on the 7th of January 2021, every infraction ought to be accounted for in accordance with law. And so they should take steps. This is a country that belongs to all of us. When we get leadership and we are appointed into such sensitive positions, it's not just about what we benefit. It's about what we think of in the future. I've said that there are two kinds of leaders today. A visionary one, a sober one, a quiet one, who thinks of Ghana tomorrow into the future. And a very loud, robust one who makes a lot of noise but does very little for us. That is what we face as a country. And like I said, the investments we made, if the current administration had sustained that path and continued on those programs and projects, Ghana would have been moving forward than we are today. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't end there. The Ghana Gas Company, built at the cost of $1 billion, despite all these savings that I'm talking about, today is indebted to the tune of about $1 billion. If you add what ECG is adding to it, and you do the analysis, within 3 years in the energy sector alone, you are talking of a debt of about 15 billion cedis. And that is not part of the national debt. There's been a deliberate and consistent approach to take all these figures of the national accounting system. And so they present to you a certain figure as our national debt. But when you look at the contingency liabilities, the contingent liabilities, they are very, very serious. And these are revenues that when we get, we used to pay. And GNPC's loan, they have collateralized our royalties from some of our oil fields. And so what it means is that they've taken the money today, but tomorrow, you and I, the future generation, we would have to pay for the iniquities and the sins of the Akufo-Addo government. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghanaians voted for President Akufo-Addo because he promised to tackle corruption head-on. Indeed, he raised the expectations of Ghanaians and promised categorically not to run a family and friends government. Today,
I want to bring in right now the former Deputy Energy Minister under the John Mahama administration who led this press conference. We'll be speaking to energy expert Mr. Kojo Poku as we begin to interrogate the claims made today by the minority and the NDC. Mr. Junapo, thank you for your time here on Top Story. Hello, Mr. Junapo.
Hello, my brother.
Yeah, thank you for joining me on Top Story. Let's start with the claims around how government is spending the oil revenues. Your argument is that John Mahama made far less in terms of the revenues to what the current government had made, and that you raise issue that you spend far more on capital expenditure. They are spending less than 50%. It's a government policy that a chunk of that money we're making for the revenue should go into the free SHS, which is a huge part of a policy they are focusing on. It's just about, as has been argued, what your focus is and your priorities. What's wrong with that?
Thank you very much. The Public Financial Management Act guides us, but more importantly, the Personal Revenue Management Act talks about the fact that we should invest in capital investment. It's the act, it's the law that states that. Number two,
but it doesn't say that you can't invest in education. In fact, education is part of the list that you should have invested in.
No, go and read the law very well. The law talks of education, and
yes,
within education, there are three components in our national budgeting system. There's goods and services, there's capital expenditure, and there's compensation. And so if you spend all the money on goods and services and spend all the money on compensation to the detriment of capital expenditure, it's against the law.
No, but my point is that the law you quoted, we are on the same page here. It says education. Government decides. The law doesn't say what percentage should go where. That's it.
I'm saying that the law says that a chunk of the expenditure must go into capital expenditure.
Yes.
So you can spend on education, but it must go to capital expenditure. But even the most important thing is that that assertion is wrong. This year, check the cost of the free SHS program. I refer you to Appendix 6 of the budget, 2020 budget. The cost of free SHS is 2.4 billion. That whole 2.4 billion is being financed with borrowed money from the Eurobond. So to say that they are spending the money on education is even false. They are not being frank and honest with you. Check the Eurobond proceeds. We have gone to borrow $2.4 billion, which will be paid over 30 years to fund for the free education program. So this issue of using oil revenues to fund free SHS is not even true, and the fact does not support that, according to the budget as presented by Mr. Kenoforiata.
On the subject of the revenues that has been made, you make the point categorically that the 141 billion is what this current government had made, and you raise the question about where's the investment going. But isn't that clear in the budget that is before you?
Certainly. And that is why I gave you the statistics in terms of how much we spent on capital expenditure as a percentage of GDP. We're doing an average of 4%. This government is doing an average of about 1.4%. That is why I stated that we got 71 billion. All I did was to look at the budget and add the first 3 years and compare that with the Akufo-Addo administration. So the facts are sacrosanct. I also made the point that we got just about 6 billion in terms of petroleum resources. They made 20 billion. I mean, the fact that ESLA, we got 3 billion, getting 12 billion. Ask yourself, where are those monies going to? And I stated that even Zongo Development Fund, in terms of the rail infrastructure project, they've released only 5%. If you look at 1 million per constituency at the end of 2018, remember when the budget came, 2019 hadn't ended, they had released only $48,000 per constituency, representing just about 5% of what they promised would be released to each constituency. So every figure I gave, I quoted it in the budget. And I stated that because they are not spending on capital expenditure, the construction sector, which was growing at 8.4%, today is growing at negative 8%. The electricity sector expansion, which was doing 4%, today is doing 0.5%. Our national debt has risen from 56 to 62.25%. The currency depreciation, which was 9% before we left, today is at 13%. The manufacturing sector, which was growing at 7.9%, today is 6.5%. Let them come and debate these issues. These are figures we are putting out. The Vice President made a categorical statement that they are the first government to reduce electricity tariffs. I came with a reckoner and demonstrated that in July 2016, we reduced electricity tariffs. He made the point that current electricity tariffs are lower than when they inherited office. I came with a reckoner and used the 2017-2016 reckoner and compared with the October 2019 reckoner and demonstrated that what he was saying is false. Let them engage us on these key issues that I'm raising.
Which on the reduction in electricity tariffs, which part of what Bawumia said is false? He says they reduced electricity tariffs, which is a fact, by a significant historic margin. In fact, if you compare to the last decade, that's a fact, is it not?
He was categorical that they are the first government to have reduced electricity tariffs. All of us listened to him. And I'm saying that is false because in July, we reduced electricity tariffs by about 18%. And the record is there. I'm talking of July 2016. He makes the fact that today, electricity tariffs are lower than before. And I'm saying that I brought the facts, and the facts are there. They are online. That what he says is not true. Today, tariffs are higher than before they assumed office.
Based on what? Can you give me the trend analysis that leads you to that conclusion?
Yeah, based on the what you call the reckoner, because the ECG publishes the reckoner. And let me give you an example, a clear example. If you look at 150 units or 100 units, you'll be paying about 88 during our time. Today you are paying 93. How can you say that 93 is lower than 88? That cannot be true. And this is on the website of ECG. Please, when we are done, you do a lot of fact checking. Go to the ECG website and check it. He says that our national debt was 122 billion. The body mandated and authorized to validate our national accounting figures is the Auditor General. The Auditor General says that December 2016, our debt was 120 billion. The Vice President insists that it is 122. When we asked the Minister of Finance at Parliament, they indicated that they use the March exchange rate against the December figure. Where is this done in accounting? You take December figures, you won't convert it using December exchange rate. You rather come and use March exchange rate. That is statistical galamsey, and that cannot be the point.
Let's talk about, you singled out a few energy sector institutions. One of them that interests me is GMPC, and you had concerns with the GMPC borrower. You say it's an infraction of the law. Which law?
The Public Financial Management Act.
Which aspect of the law?
Makes it clear that a covered entity, and GMPC is a covered entity, before it borrows money, it must appear before Parliament with the terms and conditions of that facility, and the Parliament must approve it. When they appeared before the Mines and Energy Program with their work program, go and check the parliamentary hazard. In approving their program, Parliament made it clear and explicit, unequivocal, that when you are borrowing these monies, come back to Parliament. They have borrowed the monies without recourse to Parliament. They've borrowed about $1 billion. GMPC's annual budget that comes from our petroleum resources is just about $150 million per annum. Just 150. So far, we've gotten $5 billion. GMPC gets just about 30% of that over the 10-year period. But in 1 year, they have borrowed $1 billion without recourse to Parliament. That is illegal.
Yeah, I mean, if that is the case, you as a member of Parliament have the recourse to, one, bring up in Parliament, two, take legal action.
Thank you very much. That is why we send a word of caution to them, that they should stop that procedure. They shouldn't infringe on the law because we would use legal means. We have filed processes and motions in Parliament.
But this is not the first time I've heard. Sorry, this is not the first time I've heard you, and in fact others in the party, raise this issue about legal breach of the law by the GMPC. No action has been taken.
I'm saying that we've initiated process in Parliament. It's only the Speaker who can admit what we've initiated.
Have you filed the motion?
We have filed. Check. We filed processes. But you see, our interest is whether they have breached the law or not.
But that can be tested in court. Are you prepared to go to court on this?
If it becomes necessary, we would.
But is it not necessary now? You're saying that if you win power in 2021, that's what you would do. But you can do it now. What's stopping you from doing it now?
The use the parliamentary process, and that is what we are doing to ensure that the right is done in Parliament. I'm a member of Parliament. I serve in Parliament. And so I'm using processes within Parliament to seek redress. And I'm saying that if that fails, I would have to resort to other means to seek redress.
Now, you also mentioned some revenues from the oil sector that you say are missing. In fact, you quote the PIAC report that you say almost $500 million, is it, that you say cannot be accounted for, correct?
Certainly, that is contained in the PIAC report.
No, but just to be fair, the same PIAC report under the John Mahama administration, under which you were deputy minister, recounts many incidents where monies that, again, back to GMPC, for example, that government claimed had given to GMPC could not be traced. I want to read you one of them. This is the 2014 report, page 7 of the PIAC report, and it gives you a table of allocation of ABFA to GMPC. I want to quote here. It says an amount of 72.55 million cedis was reported to have been paid to the GMPC. However, the GMPC said they did not receive the said amount. Another 13 million could also not be linked directly to any project. That is under your administration.
What the PIAC does is to investigate and bring up matters. And as members of Parliament, our duty is to raise those issues and deal with them. Check with PIAC 2014 when they raised these issues, whether we did not engage them to resolve them. We did engage them and resolve this matter. We are talking of $655 million, the taxpayers' money. That cannot be accounted.
I'm sorry, but 72 million is also taxpayers' money, John Janampo.
So let's raise all these issues.
That is why we are Ghanaians. And I encourage all of us, in the spirit of probity and accountability, in the spirit of ensuring that there's transparency, let us raise all these issues and seek answers. And I think that we ought to be commended, rather, for raising these critical issues, for all of us to interrogate them.
It's still alive with me. Let me bring in energy analyst, Mr. Kojo Poku. Mr. Poku, thank you for time here on Top Story.
Hi, good evening. How are you? And I hope your listeners are well.
Let's start with the conversation around how the revenues are being used. Mr. Junapo argues, first of all, is it true? I mean, he argues that the NDC government made far less compared to what the current government is making, in a region of some 140 billion compared to their just over 70 billion. Is that the case?
Well, before I answer that, let's put some clarity to the conversation. You see, it's very unfortunate that when you have parliamentarians, when they are in power, will sing one tune and say something else when they're in opposition. In 2014, we all remember that Honorable Matthew Poku, Napo and Atachiao, when GMPC was about to borrow 700 million, took the case to court. And the court ruled that GMPC is itself and they can borrow without recourse to Parliament. And at that time, NDC championed the court ruling that GMPC can borrow without parliamentary approval. Now it's sad that NDC is in opposition and they are telling the MPP that it's funny, because for me, I think politicians like to throw dust into our eyes. In one breath, you did it. In one breath, you did it. And you, GMPC, raised money. MPP challenged it in court. The court ruled that GMPC can borrow without recourse to Parliament. If MPP is doing the same, why are you complaining? Because you are the one who said the president.
And your point is that NPP is doing it with a clear court backing, because the court has ruled on this before.
Time has ruled. And anybody can go online and check that 700 million which Atachi them took to court.
Okay.
Now, let me go.
Give me a second. Give me a second. Just a second. I'll come back to the substantive question I asked. Yes. Let me get Mr. Janapo's clarity reaction
on the
to that.
line, please.
This is Mr. Kojo Poku. He's an journalist. Yes.
You are talking of 2014. Parliament has passed a law in 2016, Act 921. I'm saying that there's a law. When you went in 2014, there was no law. And to the extent that there was no law prohibiting GMPC from borrowing, the court would uphold it. But in 2016, there is a law. Please, can we read this document? What kind of analysis are we doing? There is a law that says that before you borrow, once you are a covered entity, come to Parliament. The law was passed in December 2016, and you are referring to 2014. What kind of analysis is this?
Mr. Junapo, just a second. Mr. Kojo.
Can he tell us the exact law he's referring to?
Go and read Act 921, the Public Financial Management Act. Go and read about covered entities and the procedure they should follow when they are borrowing money. And the fact that when it's a multi-year contract or multi-year financial commitment, Parliament and even the Finance Minister, the Debt Sustainability Office ought to do the analysis and bring the fiscal impact to Parliament before we consider the terms and conditions, before we approve it. Please, Nana, let's do some research.
Mr. Janapo, let's move on. I'm checking. There's which section of the act are you quoting?
Give me my tablet.
Okay, Mr. Kojo Poku, you can address your substantive issue as we check.
We can move on this conversation, and then the relevant lawyers can address the act and the subsection that he quotes. Look, it is a fact that you look at the volumes of oil that the NDC were drawing at the time, and you look at the volumes of oil that the MPP will be drawing, and then the differential in exchange rates. Yes, the NDC will have received much lesser revenue as compared to what the MPP is receiving now. But then, rightfully, you put it correctly when you started your conversation and said that, look, it is a policy priority. If NDC decided to use their money for infrastructure, build the Dubai Circle overhead, build Kaswa overhead, but MPP believes that they want to use that money for free SHS. Be it building dormitories, procuring chairs, tables, and beds for students who are in schools, trying to build dining halls and all these educational infrastructure, if that is what the MPP wants to use the money for, personally, I don't see what is wrong with that, because it is a policy priority. NDC can go in 2020 and campaign that, look, we would use our oil resources to build bridges. MPP can campaign that we will use the oil resources to do free HHS and build dormitories and dining hall. That
is not true, Dana. What you are saying is not true. Please, can you read the PIAC report? They are not using oil revenue to build dormitories. They are not using oil revenue to build classrooms. They are using oil revenue for goods and services. The classrooms are built by monies they borrowed. They borrowed 1.5 billion on the back of Get Fund. These are two different entities. And read section 33 of the Public Financial Management.
Yeah, I have a section here. It says
multi-year expenditure commitment.
Okay, let's Mr. Kojopuku made a substantive point. Yeah, Mr. Kojopuku.
Okay, so the point I'm making is this. You see, we keep saying that MPP has received substantive amount of money. We all know the stringent regulations put in place by the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. How much money should go to consolidated fund to be used by government? How much should go to GMPC? How much should go to the Stabilization Fund and the Heritage Fund? Is anybody saying that there is two gentlemen out there who mysteriously go to the consolidated fund, draws the money, puts it in their pocket and go home? Is that what somebody is trying to accuse? That's not true. We all know that is not the case. The case is that the money is used by government on projects. You might not agree to what the government is using the money on. But the fact that they are using the oil revenue on projects, that doesn't mean that somebody is using the money untowardly. So let's stop put it out there and let Ghanaians think that, oh, MPP is probably siphoning money into private pockets. You might not agree with what they are using the money on. Is different from saying that the money is misappropriated.
Evans.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Look, could you please read the PIAC report? The PIAC report is not talking about the fact that you use the money for projects A, B, C, and I disagree with you. The PIAC report is saying that you did not utilize the money and you can't account for the money. Under the Public Financial Management Act and under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, you must account for it. It's just accountability. We can debate as to whether you use the money for free SHS or not. That's a different argument altogether. We are saying that based on the PIAC report, 655 million cannot be accounted for. Don't mix up the issues, please. We can debate the issue of what they have used the remaining money for. The emphasis is that 655 million cannot be accounted. You can't even tell us how you disburse that 655 million. And that must be accounted for to the PIAC, because it has a constitutional duty under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to ensure that it keeps track of how we spend this money.
Let me give the final word to Mr. Kojopuku to wrap on this.
Evan, I agree clearly with my brother by saying that money can be accounted for. And I have been on record on various platforms to say that I don't think this issue of not being able to account for such revenue is the politicians that are responsible. It's the civil servants. Because this, from 2017, it's not the first time that PIAC reports have said that money can be accounted for or projects that were supposed to be there are not there. We all have seen PIAC reports year on year from 2014, 2013, all over. Every time every year PIAC report comes out, PIAC has a problem during the NDC time, during the MPP time, with unaccounted money. So I honestly don't think that this is a politician problem. It is the civil servants who sit at the Ministry of Finance who are not doing proper accounting. Look, it says that when the money is not used, it's supposed to be returned back into an account. And they don't do that. They use it for other things by the instruction of their bosses. Yes, we agree. But you should document it and give proper accounting. So, Mr. Janapo, I honestly don't think that looking at PIAC report indicting the NDC of money unaccounted for and PIAC report indicting the MPP for money not accounted for, I don't really think it is something that we could say that somebody is embezzling or misappropriating money.
Have I said
okay. Gentlemen, I'm grateful that you joined me. Just ran out of time on this. But thank you, Mr. Jinapo, for joining us on this. Also, Kojopuku, for also joining us with your views on this. And I've just been checking the the law really about the whether or not GMPC has to go to Parliament, as Kojopuku had mentioned. There's a 2016 law, the Financial Management Act, and this says that when it comes to responsibilities of the minister, submit. This is Section 4. Submit to Parliament for approval the budget of covered entities as required under this Act or any other enactment to ensure compliance of the covered entities. And so that's when it defines covered entities to include, of course, these state corporations, including GMPC and others. That's it for Top Story tonight. Newsnight starts right now.